Sometimes your imperfect answer is your perfect answer of what people needed to hear.
Well, welcome to our podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Oh gosh, you did an amazing session today. I'm so grateful you're here. And, a lot of the things that we talk about on the podcast are, limiting beliefs, our biggest challenges, all of that. And we'll get to that. But first, why don't you go ahead and share with people just a little bit about yourself, the position you hold over at the Loan Store. We're so grateful for the Loan Store. They're one of our biggest sponsors. So thank you guys. But why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you. The session has been awesome so far. So thanks for having us. We're very proud to sponsor, and hopefully we get to do more together. I'm Teresa Reber. I've been with the Loan Store for a little over 2.5 years. I'm the COO on the operations side. Held roles at Bank of America, Stearns, Home Point, Nation Star. Started out as a loan officer. We talked about that this morning. I have a lot of respect for loan officers and what they do and how they do that. I feel like I'm more valuable on the operations side. So that's where I've spent. I've been in the mortgage industry 22 years now. And I think 18 of it have been on the operations side.
Okay. And, one of the things, and I'm sure I'm going to do a podcast with Phil on Wednesday, and I'm sure we'll talk about this some more, but you guys have a different management style that's really, honoring who people are. And he told me how you guys are trying to really redistribute some of the wealth that's built within the company, which I think is a novel idea, instead of, the top echelon of, just the C-suite being able to get a certain level of success and monetary compensation for it. Why don't you go ahead and share with people, the thought process around that and like what you're really looking to do in the industry?
Yeah, Phil is, I think he's evolved over the years. I think he's always deeply in his core been a very want to give back, but always very driven. And I think, holding different roles at different companies and some of his experiences, he didn't really want to repeat, with the Loan Store. So he's done a really amazing job of not just thinking about things from a different perspective, from a lending perspective, but from a people perspective. And like you said, there's, typically in a lot of companies, the C-suite and that second level of leadership are the ones that benefit monetarily. But we thought about it a little bit different. We can't do what we do without the people that do what they do. And it's really important to us to make sure that everyone feels a part of the success. We want everybody to be empowered and feel some of that, because if you think about our industry and the aging of our industry, it's that next, generation coming up that is really going to, keep things going and propel that. And if you want them to be bought in, you got to think about it a little bit differently. And he's very good at wanting to share that across, not just with himself and us in the C-suite and that next level of leadership. I mean, every mortgage company has its problems. It's all about who you do it with. And I think every company says they have culture. And a lot of them do. I think there are a lot of my friends work for, like we talked about, a lot of our friends are in the industry and they love where they work. And that's really important, that people love TLS and want to work. And you feel that if your team feels that, then we think that, people who do business with us will feel it. So we kind of re-engineered that a little bit different, and kudos to Phil for bringing that to us. And we voted on it, and it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, I love that. And culture definitely is a hot word in the industry. I think in any company, it's really about building culture, which is also kind of like branding. It's, what's that feeling people get, and really good culture and really good branding will super attract the right person and repel the wrong person. And so it's so also went out to one of our lending partners just recently. They have a completely different culture, and they have this massive campus, and they have I felt like I was back at college, and I was like, wow, you guys have basketball leagues, and you got ping pong happening over here, and there's this happening, there's all this stuff happening. And I was like, yeah, it feels like college campus. They're like, yeah, because you never want to leave. And I'm like, it also feels like jail. It's like a fun jail, right?
You get your time, but
And
your rec time is approved.
Yes. And their company culture is very different. And so, that's, one of the things I love about the different companies that we work with. They all have a different feel, a different vibe. And, it's, I don't know, it's been great partnering with you guys, and love just the thought and the people first and the abundance mindset that Phil leads with. So I'm so grateful for that. What have been as a woman in this industry, which tends to be at that level, very male dominated, what have been your biggest challenges?
Oh gosh. There are a lot, I try not to think of it as, what are my challenges as a woman, but you can't really hide from it when you walk into a boardroom, or when I travel for years in my career, and you're the only woman there. Like, you're the one with the checked baggage and everybody else has a carry-on. Like, you don't think about that and that. But I think, in the beginning, I used to feel like I had to dress not boldly. I would wear, black and tan, and, I wouldn't wear all of the jewelry. And, if I was going to say something, I didn't want to be perceived as emotional or hard to get along with, or, if we could just get, past her. And so I think just reminding myself that I got here because of who I am. Because it's tough, you hear things all the time. Well, women hear this all the time. You got there because you knew somebody. You got there because of, whatever. Yep. But reminding ourselves that we got here because of who we are is really, really important. And be the one that speaks up. You can be the voice that, we have a different perspective because we are different. And I think that brings a lot of newness to a conversation, a different perspective for those that are willing to listen. But when you're going for roles, you really have to sell yourself. You have to be confident in what you bring to the table, and know that that's what got you there. So wear the shoes, wear the jewelry, be bring that different perspective. And sometimes your imperfect answer is your perfect answer of what people needed to hear.
Yeah. I love that. So I will tell you, when I first started Notorious, there was part of me that thought this was to fight the patriarchy in mortgage. I was like, let's fight the patriarchy in mortgage. We're going to get more women up on this stage. Because, there's no secret that the stages of mortgage are 90%, that's being very gracious, to 100% male. And so I was like, hey, let's fight the patriarchy. And what I found that was very interesting, and this has played out a little bit over time, is that last year, a lot of women said, being in community with other women, for them, in an environment that's inclusive, that is accepting, that had healed a space in their heart. And so also along that path was sometimes the biggest trespassers against our hearts are other women. And that's the hard one to really.
Yes, the one. So right.
Yeah. So how do you, when that has happened to you in the past, what have been your biggest lessons, and how did you deal with that? Any words of advice as you're going through?
Yeah, I think that has been the most disappointing, is when, you feel like you're competing against other women, because there's only so many spots that we feel like women can hold. And doing that, you do learn that, and it is probably worse in the other situations. For me, I said this earlier today, in the last year, I've never been more proud to be a woman in mortgage than I have been. And I think it's because I never wanted to be the one that was fight for the women and all that. And it's not really about that, to your point. I love my male counterparts. They are phenomenal. They're supportive. Yeah. But facts are facts, to your point. Yeah. So what I really try to tell people is that, you don't get years back in your life. Don't think that you have to work till midnight because the woman next to you says you're not going to get anywhere. Go to the kids' game. Go to your doctor's appointments. How many people miss their doctor's appointments because they don't have time? Yeah. And make it a point to create a path for the next woman. So even though someone has, another woman has really kind of what you feel like has disappointed you in the way of support, don't let that jade you, because the only thing you control is your attitude.
Yeah.
And I promise you, that person is not worried you're upset, because they wouldn't have upset you to begin with.
Yeah.
So just keep going, and then think about how you can make the path for the next person, and just do all the things. Like, it's just, life is too short. We can do, again, go to the kids' baseball game. Somebody will cover for you. Go to your doctor's appointments. Take time for lunch. Go watch paint dry if that's what you like to do.
See, I was like, I really need to get a hobby.
Watching paint dry is really great. It's very,
Yeah, I want to get a hobby that's pretty soon, because I find myself, if there's just, extra time, it's like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know, I guess I'm going to work. It's just because that's what we're just always doing. And now definitely seeing the need to have just mindless activity. How often do you go into just a store to you don't have anything you're shopping for?
Yeah.
You're just like, I'm going to walk through TJ Maxx or Home Goods, that for me for a really long time was no, because I don't have time to do that. But there's so much joy that can come from just browsing.
I started playing pickleball a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And now in the mornings I play at 6 a.m.
Okay.
And on the days that I don't play, I have a worse day.
Okay.
Because I'm not thinking about how many loans we have to underwrite that day. I'm not thinking about getting loans to the closing table. I'm not thinking about the next AI. All I'm thinking about is, can I serve the ball over the net right now? And when you're done, it's like, okay, now I can go start, working. But to your point, just something that gets you out of constantly thinking about work. You're more productive in that next 8 hours than you are in 12. In my opinion.
I need to do that.
I'm not saying pickleball is not for everybody. It's very frustrating. Very frustrating.
No, I need to get a hobby. You mentioned being able to reach back and help the next woman. And sometimes I guess I'll just say this. I think we need to really define what actual support looks like, because there's a lot of, I'm sorry if y'all are offended and you feel personally offended by me. If you do, there's probably something in this for you here. There are some times where people say a lot of stuff, right? People say they support you. But when it really comes down to it, for me, I'm like, stop judging people by what they say. And I need to see action.
Absolutely.
Action. Because there's a big difference, the first go around in Notorious where, people, oh, who you should connect with? So-and-so. And then I would get a screenshot of a profile. And I'm like, that does nothing for me, right? Yay, that's not actual support. And then I'm like, the next level of support was Perry over at C2 was who you need to meet? Let me put you in contact with Kim Nichols over at Penny Mag. I'm going to put you in an email. And that's what that is support. Or, creating opportunities for other people. And we did an article here after the last event, and sure, it's I could have done the article by myself. I know all the stuff, but it was well, that only benefits me. And so how do we then create more opportunities? It was let me invite other women, right? So we can share that stage. And that's what we do here, is getting more women on stage, creating opportunities. And for me, that's what support looks like, not the well wishes. And I love the well wishes, but
yeah, no, you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
How does that look like for you in your guys' business?
I think that's really important. And I think that the last few years, like I said earlier today, it's you have to figure out what your what is, and then the how, because you can say, I want to be successful. I want to help the next woman come up, but how you do it, it's what is the destination, the how is your GPS. So really, okay, so I want to create a leadership program. Okay, what are you teaching in that leadership? And I just had this conversation with one of my leaders a couple weeks ago. I said, you want to manage the pipeline. You tell them to manage the pipeline. That means different things to different people. So you have to actually lay it out. And so when I think about helping the next woman, it is, how do you educate yourself? How do you have 30 minutes of self-learning a day? How do you, go, back in the day when the handbook was a
National
paperback.
Handbook.
Yeah. And you got it, no, I ordered it. Then I'd pick one thing out of it. Did you know that you could do chapter 13 on FHA and all you have to have is X, Y, and Z? So I think not just saying it, but to your point, like you have to have a roadmap and you have to have someone who wants to do it too. If they're consistent and disciplined, it's up to me because they don't know what to ask.
Yep.
They don't know, how can I help you? Well, they don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know.
Right. So telling them, okay, so 30 minutes of self-learning a day. If you want to do this much in business or you want to be a leader, don't go buy the self-help books. Like they're good. Don't get me wrong. And they have a lot of good things in it, but you're not really going to understand how to apply them without someone that has been there, does that. And say, if you're in a meeting, this is the best advice I give to somebody. They're like, I'm going into my first meeting. Ask a question. Just one thing. Like you don't have to be the loudest person in the room, but let them know you were there. Ask a question that will, that is intelligent and it will come off that way. So then it's like, okay. So I think giving the guide and making sure you understand the outcome is really, really important. So you can reverse engineer what you do. And look, at the end of the day, just be confident in you and your abilities. But being able to tell people how to do that or just, to your point, like connect with this person. Okay, when I was supposed to do that at that point. But, creating a roadmap for someone and really spending the time is important because everybody says they want to help.
Yeah.
Not everybody actually takes the steps.
So I actually had a manager one time and it was like wild concept for me, especially being in sales. He would always keep his voicemail full. 100%. I keep my voicemail full now. I do for now. But he used to keep it full all the time. And I'd be like, what is like, you're my manager. And he's like, yeah. But what'll happen is like, you can't get a hold of me. And then what do? I gotta go figure it out. And he's like, yeah. And in figuring out, what else do you learn? And I was like, I learned 50 other things. I learned 50 other reasons why it doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
And it was like, oh my God. And he's like, yeah, if I'm readily available for you and I answer every question like at the drop of a dime for you and you don't physically go through that process, he's like, I actually do you a huge disservice. And I was like, oh, I got it. I was like, I got it. Okay, got it. That. And then also one thing there's so many times like when we learn things and like in our head and we really don't learn them until we go through them. Like it has to go from like the head to the like heart to where like you actually know that
it's the muscle memory.
Yeah. And you can't save people from that. And I think sometimes as like quote unquote leaders, we don't, and parents, as parents, we don't want to allow them to go through their own journey, right? Especially as a parent, like you want to save your kids like all the heartache and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, gosh, how much of a disservice am I doing you by not doing that? And so I don't know, in our household, it's like I just try to like, if I can just like walk alongside with you. And, these are your bumpers as a child of mine. And like, if I can walk alongside of you and be here with you, I can't solve your problems. And unfortunately, it's going to hurt sometimes. And I just be there with you during the heartache, because we have to learn these things,
I could not agree with you more. I mean, outstanding from a parental perspective. I think that's the hardest because you've got more of your heart, invested in that and you don't want to see that, but you're doing them a disservice to your point. And, as a leader, it's easier to be like, just fill out this spreadsheet. But it's, like I talked about earlier, I mean, when I locked that, I'll never forget it. That was 2003, when I locked that investment property as a primary residence and I had to pay for it as a single mom. I was like, I don't know, like I'm not getting a paycheck, for this, but I never did it again. Or, my first sales leader, he made us all present a product and mine was a 6-1 balloon. And as I went through that, and then I was like links to other things, resources are so key in mortgage. Compliance changes, products change, regulatory changes. But if you know where to go find it and apply it, you're not only super successful, but you don't have to wait on someone to tell you.
Yeah. That's what I love. That is my favorite part about mortgage, is that theory. Not everybody gets the theory around and maybe this is just because, pre-2008, we had a lot more leeway in what we could do, and, we'd have guidelines, but I remember I would go into loan committee like every day because I always had a file where I was like, listen, I know it don't work on paper,
but let me tell you a thing.
Let me show you, the pros and the cons, what are the compensating factors, all this kind of stuff. Like, I think this is a good file to do. And then also being I think sometimes what happens, I'm sorry, underwriters, I'm sorry, sometimes underwriters don't understand the theory behind mortgage lending,
Sure.
right? They become robots almost. And it's, sometimes I'm like, no, we have guidelines because guidelines are there to mitigate risk, right? And so understanding why that guideline is there. And sometimes the challenge for me, I do a lot of short-term rental. It's like, I'm like, you don't even own a house, Mr. Mrs. Underwriter. 2, you don't even understand short-term rental. So now it's trying to they're trying to protect the company, with the risk side of it.
Or they've gotten a QC finding and they, they don't want to ever do that. I think that freaks people out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so sometimes we're like fighting over, I'm like, you just don't understand the theory of why we have what we have. But if you do know the theory, you can take, in this instance, this is why we have that theory behind risk analysis. Can we apply the same thought process in this situation that might look different? That's been my favorite. It's like the puzzle piece.
You're so right about that. And I say, I talk a lot with Fannie and Freddie, and we talk a lot about philosophy and why this exists and what you're trying to not do. And look, anybody can go download the guidelines from Fannie and Freddie. You don't have to have a special login.
Yep.
But learning how to apply them is what makes you a great underwriter, a great loan officer. And to your point around understanding the philosophy, because, when I'm talking about a difficult loan, because mainly that's what people come to me for. I don't get the easy questions, right? Is, okay, let's walk this back. Yep. What if this happens? So, I think my philosophy has always been, stretch the rubber band, don't break it, stretch it. But I think we've got a lot of newer people in the industry that don't necessarily understand or want or have the confidence to talk about it. Yeah. But if they understand the philosophy and how to apply it, that's great.
I wonder how much of it is now that everything's online and you don't have to you just have to read through it, right? You're like, okay, this isn't, and they were all formatted in the same, it's like the credit, the income, you knew where everything was, but you had to read through half of the book to find your answer. And sometimes now if you can just go into the chat function or whatever, and then it's searching keyword, and then it's only giving you this little blurb, you really don't learn that much, and so being able to apply it becomes a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, I'll probably say something really controversial, but
let's do it.
It's within the world of artificial intelligence and automation, I think it's really made underwriting worse for that reason. Is that you no matter what kind of thing, every company is really cost, and you've got to manage your cost. And we've seen what's happened over the years if you don't manage your cost, and trying to automate as much as you can, which I'm a really big advocate of. But if you don't understand that the machine either read it wrong or didn't pick up on this, then you're not going to get there.
Yeah.
And I think that's I think as people look into automation and AI, that's the single thing you have to keep in mind is the machine can do so much.
Yeah.
But you have to have someone who understands mortgage lending on the back half of it.
Yeah.
And we could go into the relationships and all of that. And I think TLS is doing a really nice job of using AI where we can. Our tech team is amazing. We've done things, but we also have not lost the fact that you still need a person in the transaction.
You do. It'll be interesting to see what happens with AI in across all industries, and all that kind of stuff. All right. So we're only a little halfway into our very first day of conference. What's been your biggest takeaway so far? What have you loved the most? And maybe what are you excited for the most?
Oh, gosh. I sound like a girl from Kentucky, don't I? Because, I am. My biggest takeaway so far is just the amount of women that are willing to be themselves and help each other. And, talked about that a little bit, is that that's not always the case. And that's been so refreshing and quite frankly, motivational for me. So that's, so far, again, we're only a couple hours. I'm sure there's some other things, but that's been fantastic. I'm really excited. I can't decide if I'm more excited for the PJ party because I got, if that's exciting, or Bingo Loco.
Bingo freaking loco!
I had to even Google it to know what it was.
Did you watch the video?
Yes, I did. So that's gonna be exciting.
Note to self: I need to order a CO2 cannon for them. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be such a vibe. I'm so excited for it. You're gonna have a great experience, and I think that you're right. There's something about what we've created here at Notorious that's different than anything else I've been a part of. And I really think that's from top down, that we set a precedence of, authenticity and mutual respect and camaraderie. We have these pillars: create, what are they? Create, collaborate,
and listen,
connect, and celebrate. There we go. There they all are. Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be an amazing event. I'm so glad you're here.
And I'll say this for those that, haven't attended, I guess this is just the second year, is that I go to a ton of conferences, a ton. Yeah. I've been to several women's events, and they were all great. But it's nice to just feel like, you're not always being spoken to, and that you're really collaborating and talking about things like, yes, I've been there. I understand that somebody else heard me and felt and you get to have a lot of fun. You're going, you're crammed, you're 8 hours, you get some food and that. So I have to say, anybody that, has not been, they should 100% think about doing that.
Thank you. 100% intentionally designed, from a slow morning into a long extended lunch. And we'd have that time specifically to create relationships, because a lot of times the magic doesn't happen from the stage. It's in one-on-one conversations with people. And unfortunately, when you're jam-packed for is it 4 hours or 8 hours, you just don't get that time.
And you're always feeling like you have to catch up on work or whatever you have to do. So then you don't pay attention and you don't get out of it what the design was. Yeah. So to have the extra time in the morning and then the extended lunch has been okay, so now I can really focus on what we're doing this afternoon. So great work so far.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being part of our speaker panel this year. I'm really, really, really excited to see where our partnership goes in the future.
You and your team have been fabulous, and I didn't really know how much I would enjoy and get out of this, but it's been amazing. And we're only a couple hours in.
Oh, so. Just wait, girl.
I know. Look, I've got all the expectations.
Just wait.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, guys, thanks so much for watching this episode of Standout. Go and follow us across all social platforms at Notorious WMN, and we'll catch you on the next one.